Limited. Well, to that degree, it's not anything else. And in that respect, I have isolated it from everything else.
Right.
Bounded.
Wait a minute. That sounds pretty arbitrary to me, to put a boundary on it.
Well,
You could assume that you can also.
why, of course. Well, look, if there is something that is unbounded, we are talking about something unbounded.
We're talking about something unlimited, right?
Unlimited. Yeah. Well, that's a boundary around that idea.
Mm-hmm. But that, aren't you just basically saying that when you speak about it, the
Anything.
mere fact of speaking about it,
Which I,
you've defined it then.
Defined it.
It's defined.
Quite true.
As a boundary.
And that defined
Mechanics of speaking about it.
that's right. The defining it creates a boundary.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I said unlimited, bounded. That's quite true.
So unlimited is a bounded concept.
Yes.
It's limited.
All right.
Okay. All right. Now, did you see how we generated from that this? Now let's go further. There's something very curious about this idea of being. All right. And that is, we can speak about it, we can speak about this idea of being as therefore being unlimited, permanent. Right? But look here, you see, if it has some motion, in the way in which we described it a moment ago, logical motion, right? We can then say, is it possible for this thing with motion? It either moves somewhere else, it either moves to a place in which it is not, or it stays where it is and rotates upon itself at some point. For those are the kinds of motions there are. Well, we can't say that it can move to some other place, because that would presuppose there are other places in which it can move, and that would be a manyness. We can't say then that it can move in some other place, or even if it stays upon a point, there has to be a point upon which it rotates, and there have to be a point upon which it rotates. That's another thing, and that's a manyness. Is it possible then that there's this kind of motion? That is to say, it can know itself. If it can know itself, then that's the kind of being that can turn upon itself. That's the Greek word for ousia. The trouble with that word is that it is often translated with the word essence. And we do not mean, very few people know what they mean when they use the word essence, unless they mean by it something that is intrinsic to a thing. But that's not what this is. This is the capability of something on its most fundamental level turning upon itself and knowing itself, or recognizing itself. And that is a kind of motion different than the other kinds of motion we just described. Now it's that kind of, right, that kind of thing we're calling being. Now there's another Greek word, onto, right, or toon, right, which is also given the word being. And that's the problem. These two in English are often interchanged, and that causes a great deal of problem. When we're going to use the word turning upon itself, when being is able to turn upon itself, know itself, we're going to use the word ousia because we don't have an English word for that. And I will occasionally use the word essence and bracketing. Okay, now.
The being that he's talking about is ousia here, or the motion is ousia? Which one?
When I talk about being as being permanent, always the same, never any change in it in any respect, eternal, right? Then we're talking about the word being.
But what is the Greek word?
Toon.
Oh. From which we get ontology, etc.
Yeah, from where do we get? That's right, ontology, ontos, right. Being, right.
So,
Ontos, right, ontology. Yeah, from the Greek word ontos, right.
question?
Yeah.
So then is unlimited bounded self-knowledge being?
Pardon me?
Unlimited bounded self-knowledge is being.
Yes, yes. That gives the possibility of of knowing oneself if we have that kind of being. All right. Okay. Now, I just wanted to go back to that one line I had and work backwards tonight. Now, in this game of metaphysics, we want to see where we put that essence. Right? We want to see where to put that essence. Now, I'm going to use this word essence simply because the text often does. Right? Now, what he is saying is that this being, or essence, right, stands, as it were, between the one and soul. Now, that's called a middle position. Right? That's a middle position. And as such, this triad, therefore, is impartible. Because as the one, as the ousia relates to the one, in the highest sense you can't say you can break it up into parts. When you talk about in respect to the soul, you're talking about the soul in respect to a one soul. Now, anything that exists in our everyday world, when we talk about existence, we're talking about this lower one, because everything that's said to have existence has some kind of essence, and that's between, therefore, if it's living, right? Every living thing is said to therefore have some kind of soul, some kind of essence, and it must be related to some kind of body or bodies. And if that's the case, if it therefore is in this middle position between these two, which we'll explain in a minute, then we can talk about it being partible, or capable of being in parts. Now, if it is over here, then ousia is an image of the one. In respect to it, ousia in respect to the soul, then ousia is the paradigm of the soul. Now, I want to now jump into, we can have some fun with the implications of this. A paradigm is that from which everything else